I grew up without a mom. Well, that's mostly true. From the ages of 7 to 17, my current age, I didn't have a mom. But when I did have my mom, she was the best, my hero. Despite struggling to provide for our family financially, she always ensured we had everything we needed. Clothes on our back, food on the table, and love in our home. But eventually, my mother lost herself when the trauma from her past resurfaced. Without adequate support systems, she turned to drugs. My mother grew up in a very broken home. Her father, my grandfather, was a very disturbed man who physically, sexually, and mentally abused his 12 children. My grandmother witnessed these acts and chose to remain silent. Under the weight of these circumstances, my mother and many of her siblings began to abuse drugs in their youth in order to cope. My elder sister was born when my mother was just 17 years old. She still struggled with drug addiction, and my elder sister was raised in a very dangerous environment. My sister went through a lot in her childhood. And as an underprivileged child, she didn't have adequate support systems. As a result, she too turned to drug abuse in order to cope. In the end, she got pregnant at 15. The course of her life was altered, and the cycle of trauma continued. But what choice did either of them really have? What would have changed if they had real support? During this time period, my mother was finally able to kick the drugs and take control of her life. I was born in a home infused with love. My mother provided, but when financial hardship struck, she turned back to drugs, claiming it could be a source of income. But in the end, she fell back into drug abuse. She began to disappear for weeks at a time, and when she returned, she wasn't the same. The heavy drug use didn't cure her, it made her worse. Her trauma began to resurface, and her paranoia worsened. She kicked my father out of our home, and it began to crumble. She was deemed unfit, and custody was given over to my father. As I grew up, I began to struggle with my own mental health. Similarly to my mother and my elder sister, I didn't have support. Despite searching for resources and safe coping mechanisms, none were available to me. So I turned to the only thing I knew. And I too began to abuse substances. I swore I never would, yet I did. I thought that drug use would bring me the healing I so desired. But in the end, it only worsened my depression and anxiety. As my issues worsened, I could no longer hide it from those closest to me. I was at my lowest point when my father began to support me, encouraging me to find healthy outlets for my depression. Ultimately, I gave my life to God and quit all drug use. But I hate to think of where I'd be if I didn't have the support systems. Most people in my situation don't. According to the Center for Addiction and Mental Health, Canadians in the lowest income group are 3 to 4 times more likely than those in the highest income group to report poor mental health. And as stated by the World Health Organization, over 2/3 of young people struggling with mental health have no support. These underprivileged youth are at risk. Without adequate support systems, they are far more likely to turn to unhealthy coping mechanisms like drug use in order to cope. And with the normalization of vaping and marijuana, it's no surprise. People turn to drugs not because they want to, but because they have nothing else. But what if we could change that? Mental health care shouldn't be a luxury. It's a right. We need free, accessible support programs. Youth especially need education, therapy, and mentors, not more punishments. Imagine what could have changed if the next girl, like my sister, had a true support system instead of drugs. Change is possible, but it requires real action. We don't break these cycles by shaming people, but rather we break them by listening and supporting each other's healing.